Alright, okay, good evening everyone. So welcome to a new week. Okay, so it's been quite a bit since we last conducted this session because the previous few weeks I do have some things to attend to, and of course traveling a little bit, so wasn't able to really do this stream. Okay, and this week we're basically back right on our regular Monday evening session. Good. So very quickly over here, let me bring your attention, okay, towards this week's event. Right. So this week's event over here, we do have a couple of high impact news data coming in, right? So first thing is tomorrow we have the RBA rate statement morning, right? So definitely that's going to be important, right? Naturally, that's a high impact news. Anything related to interest rate decision definitely going to be crucial. Then on Wednesday, we do have the New Zealand employment data. Again, highly suggest not to touch this. Again, you're gonna be experiencing slippages and whatnot. Okay, so oftentimes we just say avoid trading the New Zealand news. And on Friday this week, we do have the Canadian labor market data. Then that's naturally a very tradable news data release, right? So if you're kind of interested into news trading, riding on some of a short-term volatility spike, right? The Canadian labor market data is often very easy to take some quick profits, off the market itself. Right. So with that in mind, okay, any trade opportunities that deal with the Aussie or the Canadian, just bear in mind that we do have that high impact news coming in this week. Okay. Now, what I also like to quickly go through is to talk about the general market, right? So kind of highlighting a couple of the common instruments, right? And then we'll very quickly see if you guys have any particular ones that we'll look into, and if you have any questions you can also put it up, and then we'll do a wrap up from there. Okay, so first thing first, if you take a look at the dollar index, okay, the market currently obviously continue to strengthen a little bit more following the NFP data last Friday. Okay, very nice little move here from the dollar to the upside. So we're currently testing the previous high, right? Around 104.25 in terms of the dollar index. I'm basically neutral, right? The reason is, I'm not so keen to buy up the dollar, at such a resistance area. Okay, of course, if it can't break above impulsively with strong momentum, then I would be naturally considering for more upside. But if I were to zoom out over here and show you the bigger picture perspective, right? The market is currently experiencing, or say currently trading around this area. So if you kind of see a rejection from here on, there's a good possibility this may have completed the bigger pullback, and we are not going to be surprised if this actually come back and retest the previous low. Right? So we're kind of at the what we call a crossroad, right? Because this area is pretty significant to tell us a bit more information in terms of if we continue higher momentum, of course, we'll be then interested in upside. But if we don't get that, I'll be very careful in actually buying where the dollar is. Okay. So naturally with that, some of this major pairs like the euro, it's also getting close to some of the significant area. Alright, so you can see over here, we're basically getting close to where the previous low is at 1.0725. So I'm not so keen in selling based on where we are, but I'll be more interested to see what's the reaction price is going to give us when it kind of tests the previous low, right? The bigger potential reward is naturally to the upside. Alright, so that's something to note. So I don't think there's going to be anything significant within the week. Okay, we don't really have a lot of dollar news this week as well. We don't really have euro news this week as well. So I think some of these majors here, right, like euro dollar and pound dollar, there will be a good possibility that we won't get any solid opportunity, right? And I'm not so much focused on them at the moment, right? So these two majors, I'll put them aside. Aussie dollar, I'm actually using neutral. But of course, Aussie dollar, we do have the RBA statement coming in tomorrow, so that might eventually shift the market, and depending on how the market price is going to move and develop post RBA, depending on the reaction, when the news came out, we may or may not have something on Aussie, right? So right now I'm still neutral. You can see, we're basically looking at a potential five-way structure completed over here. So not so keen in selling yet. I want to see how price is going to react off from here before kind of having a clear directional bias to focus on. Okay. So these three common majors for me this week, unlikely gonna have anything concrete, okay, that we can actually trade off. Now, dollar Canadian is something that I'm more interested in. Okay, of course, understanding we do have the Canadian labor market data coming in on Friday, may or may not give us that catalyst for the trade, but I'm very interested in the upside, right? I think the overall structure and direction that we can focus on the dollar Canadian is very, very clear. Right? We do get an impulsive push up, and then recently kind of potentially also completed the three-wave pullback. Very nice little reaction to the upside. So what I'm basically looking up for is if we can get a nice little decent correction back, that would naturally give us a high probability of a continuation to the upside, right? So for me, the structure, the direction is super clear. I'll be focusing on upside on the dollar Canadian, and with a target here around 1.3590. Okay, so the direction is clear. So all you need to do is basically look out for the valid setup to execute your trade, manage your risk, etc. Right? So dollar Canadian, you can see that's one of the pair that I flag out. Okay, so that's definitely something I'll be keeping a very close watch. Okay, and this week here potentially getting something as well. Now the yen pairs, so the yen pairs here I'm looking at includes the dollar yen, the pound yen, as well as the Aussie yen. So overall, in terms of the yen pairs here, we do get some nice little structure as well. Yen pairs has been consolidating quite a bit, especially in the pound and the Aussie yen. But overall, I think all the yen might give us something this week. Okay, so you can see the structure here is super clean as well on dollar yen. Strong little push to the upside, three-wave corrective, and then we get a nice little reaction, breaking some of this structure high as well, right? So if you can get a pullback here, naturally the direction is upside. Okay, so pretty much similar to the dollar Canadian. If you can get a setup to buy, that will be a high probability trade to the upside. I think there will be quite a substantial upside opportunity for the dollar yen. Okay, we do have a little bit of a potential resistance here around maybe 149.7. But I think in terms of a shorter term trade opportunity, that would be a decent target. I would say definitely sufficient risk to reward ratio. And then the next level will be its previous high around 151.17. Okay, so you may have multiple targets over here if you're more conservative. I think this area around 149.7. I think it's more than enough, okay, for that profit target potential. So since we're on the yen, right? So very quickly, just bring you over towards the pound and the Aussie. Okay, so very, very similar setup, maybe just slight difference. The pound side seems to be pulling back quite sharp at the moment, so that's where you want to wait for it to really prove to you that it's doing a corrective pullback, right, and not an impulsive pullback. Okay, so you need to give it some time, right? So this is just one wave. Oftentimes I would like to do is see if we can get a clear three-wave correction pullback. Okay, if you don't have that, I wouldn't jump in and just buy. Okay, but if you can get a three-wave correction like that, then obviously that will be a nice little buy trade to the upside. Okay, so keep a lookout. Right now this is not looking. It's definitely not something you just want to buy in now, right? But the market can still really shift into a three-wave move. Then that's where the opportunity is. Okay, so like something like this in dollar yen, right? So you want a smaller scale, but an obvious three-wave move. Okay. Same thing here in Aussie, right? So Aussie yen kind of have a very, very complex corrective structure. Recently it took out that low, and then bounce up impulsively, right? So same thing here, if you can get a corrective pullback in three-way structure, that's naturally an upside potential trade. Okay. So that's the part where I mentioned the yen pair seems to be setting up quite nicely. The only thing that if you're trading all the yen related, then you need to factor in your risk exposure, right? Because you're trading similar direction on the yen pairs. If you can't put in your similar risk in terms of each trade and then you're taking correlated pairs on the same direction, your risk exposure is increased, right? So just be aware of that if you're kind of looking at multiple yen pairs concurrently. Okay, so those are the yen pairs opportunity. And then gold here is also very clear right now. Obviously, it's still falling. The ideal situation, of course, is it gave us a little bit more of a pullback first, to give us that setup, right? But of course, right now it's falling. I'm still bearish on this, right? But of course, I'm not gonna catch, just the sell just because it's dropping. I always want to wait for a decent pullback, before committing to any trade. So this may continue to drop a little bit, but I'll be patient. If you can get a pullback again, that will be my sell trade. Okay. My target for now in terms of gold is back towards somewhere around 1990, which is essentially also the low of the channel, right? So we have this very nice little channel. The market can actually fall through a little bit more towards the previous low at 1970. Okay, so really depend on like how aggressive you're in targets, but gold is naturally another opportunity I'm paying very close attention this week. Okay, crude oil, we are looking at the possibility of a nice little bounce, right? So last couple of weeks we're looking at potentially the sell side of things. Okay, why we're looking at that, because we have this three-wave move, right? This move up wasn't very strong, so we're looking at potentially some sell opportunity down. Right now the market is testing the low, so we're kind of expecting this probably bounce up, right? So the whole idea of a short-term bearish, of course, with today's movement, you don't want to be selling that anymore, right? So you can read up a little bit over here. Price is currently testing the bottom channel, so we want to see how price develop from here first. Okay. Now, if price actually do something like that, there's a good possibility, this pattern would suggest a break to the downside, and then we'll target the previous low. But if we can't get a nice little bounce up, then there's a good chance the market will go back and retest the top of the channel, right? So we need to, again, just give it time. I always say this, right? You give it sufficient time, the market will tell you what it wants to do, what's a high probability direction to focus. But when things are not clear, there's no clear structure, then don't force something in. Okay. Yeah, so that's on the crude oil side of things. S&P. Okay, so S&P kind of tagging the 127 extension, potentially completing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm pretty much neutral on this at the moment. Overall, for the year itself, longer term perspective, I'm bullish on the equity side of things, but buying again at the top it's not going to be favorable in terms of risk to reward. So always wait for the pullback before getting involved. So this one here, really nothing. I don't think there's going to be any setup, or I don't think the S&P is going to give me any potential trade. Okay, so that's why I'm not kind of like tagging it, right? Those that are tagged are likely those that I want to pay a little bit more attention to. Okay. Pound Australia is giving us a pretty decent structure, right? We kind of have this three-wave move, a break to the upside, and this may continue to develop a three-wave move and another upside move. Okay. The only thing I don't like about this is this profit potential may not be worth my effort. Okay. I managed to take a pound Aussie buy, right? Somewhere here, buy it, and then kind of took profit, and that's it. But buying this up here, to me, is not the same as trying to buy in here, right? Because when I buy here, the profit potential is this. When I buy here, the profit potential is this, right? So kind of shrink quite a bit. Okay. And another context I'm looking into is that we have kind of rallied quite a bit for pound odd. So at some point in time, maybe somewhere there, we may see some significant pullback. Right? So I'm not too keen in this last move to the upside. Okay, though the directional bias is still bullish, but based on the principal context, this is a trade that I would just avoid. Okay, I'll just not spend too much time on it because there are other things that I can look into, right? So this is something I'll put aside. Euro Canadian is also developing quite a nice little clear structure, but I'm giving a bit more time here because this can really develop into two different scenarios. One is that this can do a crawl, and then of course if it's a crawl, I will need to be even more patient or even potentially look for the reversal trade. But if this decides to just come up like that, okay, then of course I'll be interested in the sell. So it really depends on moving forward. We also have the Canadian data on Friday, right? So moving forward, depending on how price on the Euro Canadian is gonna play out, we may get very different direction to focus. Okay, if it's a crawl, I'll be looking at a counter trend buy trade opportunity. If it's a correction, then I'll be looking at the sell side of things. Okay, that's the reason why I'm not tagging it. Basically, I'll just give it time and see how it plays out. Okay, Bitcoin has some decent opportunity over here. We do get that nice little bounce off from the low, right? So we kind of get a drop, and then after the market reverses sharply. Right now, it seems to be developing a corrective structure. Okay, so of course, this can ideally develop into 1, 2, 3. That would be best. Then the opportunity to buy will be there. Okay, so Bitcoin is another one that I would say it's worth focusing if you are into the crypto side of things. Okay. Yeah, so overall, those are the few things I'm looking into. Mainly the yen side. There are opportunities available. The dollar Canadian, as well as gold. Okay, so those are some opportunities that you can also add it into your watch list, and of course keep track of the development of price. And if you get a setup, you can look to potentially get involved as well. Alright, so good. Let me take a couple of questions over here, see if you guys have anything that you'd like to clarify as well, okay? So I see over here, one of you is asking, Wei is asking about the euro pound and the dollar CAD. I think we mentioned the dollar CAD, right? So if you take a look at euro pound, let me just clean this up a little bit. Okay. Okay, euro pound. Right now, the clear structure I'm seeing is that we may have completed a 3-wave move. Okay. Not really there yet, but potentially completing. So we may get something, a little bit more of a downside, but after which there's a good possibility we'll see a decent bounce. After it completed a 3-wave, right, equal length at the 100% extension. Okay. So if you drop a channel, it kind of looks something like that. Okay, of course this can come down a little bit more, right? So I will not be too keen on the sell side. I'll be more keen to wait for price, okay, to enter into this territory and see if I can get a setup to do a counter trend trade to the upside. Okay, so if I can get something similar to what has happened in the past, like this, okay, developing here, right? So if you duplicate this, duplicate this, and then put it here, if you can get something like that, you can see how it has reacted in the past, right? Then that would be also a nice decent trade to consider on, kind of like maybe a breakout, and then your stop just placed below it, and then your target you can easily place, just back at where the top of the channel is, or you can utilize some Fibonacci guidance, something like that, right? So yeah, that's gonna be my take on the euro pound. Okay, if I were to trade this pair, right? So that's the outlook that I'm gonna be holding on. So now Joe asked about Aussie Canadian. So Aussie Canadian right now is testing this little area. Okay. Yeah. So again, I wouldn't want to be selling at such key areas, right? I mean, this here itself, you can see previously, kind of potentially a bottom formation. So you don't want to be selling here, right? That would be a better risk reward ratio if you consider to do a counter trend potential. But of course, you don't buy in just because it's at the support, right? You want to wait for some sign that it indeed wants to bounce higher. Okay. So what you may want to wait out for is some sign of a strong little rejection back up and then a pullback that will give you that confirmation to start looking for the reversal. But for now, it's just a neutral directional bias for me. Not selling obviously because it's at support, but not buying because it's a little bit too early and too aggressive to be buying up when there's no sign of a reversal yet. Okay, so that's my take on Aussie CAD. Yeah, you want to wait out for that sign of a bounce. Okay. Chair asked about A50, HK50, and the UK100, right? Let's take a look at how the China and Hong Kong market has developed. Okay. Good. So this recent up and down swing seems pretty V-shaped, right? So we have like strong move up, strong move down, and then from here we have a strong move up as well. Oftentimes when I see something like that, I'll just frame it up with a parallel channel. Okay, can drop in some fibs here. There's a very high possibility, with so many up and down V-shaped formations, it's likely just developing as a corrective state in the market right now. And if I were to put in the viewpoint, I would say this would be something likely developing. So of course, if we can get some kind of corrective structure developed here in the next 1 or 2 days, you don't want this to come down too fast, right? You just really want it to take some time to play out like this. Then you have a short-term buy to the upside, right? But if again this develops as a three-way structure like that, this spells more downside. Okay. Yeah, so that's my take on the A50. In terms of Hang Seng, is a little bit different in the structure, right? So Hang Seng right now, there's a good possibility we are looking at outside here as well. I think it's testing the 618 at the moment, right? Okay. So Hang Seng here potentially upside that looks something like that. But of course Hang Seng and A50 most of the time they are kind of correlated, right? So this may develop into something like this as well. Right? So quite similar, right? In terms of A50 here is maybe a little bit of a gentle slope to the upside, right? But HSI seems to be a little bit stronger. So ways to get involved potentially, I would say if you're looking to buy, you can obviously wait for some kind of a breakout trade. Okay, you don't want to buy now because again, as the market is pulling back, you don't want to get involved when there's no clear structure. Right? At least that's my take. Okay, so if you want to look into buy opportunity for Hang Seng, wait for some kind of a breakout, right? So you can of course take this minor high here, you can take this high here. Okay, I think the upside still have some room. Okay, so there's no need to rush things through. You definitely want to deploy some kind of like a confirmation entry, some kind of a breakout trade, then you get involved in it. All right. Let's take a look at the FTSE. Okay, FTSE side of things is a bit cleaner as well. I think this would be pretty nice if we can get a continuation of a correction here. Then there's a good chance we'll see more upside opportunity, right? So again, we can stretch this a little bit. That's gonna be my take. Okay, so I think FTSE, if this is just gonna correctively pull back towards the 50 and 618, then that would be nice little structure for upside. Okay, in fact, it would be better than the A50 as well as the Hang Seng side, right? So among these three index, potentially the FTSE will give you a nicer opportunity to get involved in the buy. Okay. Sunadro asked about the dollar, Kiwi dollar. Kiwi dollar here, think this one here more or less has played out. Yeah, so again, if no, I don't trade the Kiwi dollar, but for those of you who are looking at this, I think I'm not sure when I shared this. Okay? But the whole idea is we're looking at targets around this area. We're getting very close, so there's no reason to be selling it at where we are right now, right? Okay, so we do have some key areas here, key fits as well. So short term, I don't think there's going to be any opportunity, right? We're just going to be waiting for this to drop into the zone, see how the market is going to react. If you're going to give us some kind of a decent rejection, then of course we'll be looking at the outside. Okay, but given we get that confirmation of a bounce, right? So it's going to take time. Okay, and definitely from my perspective here is not something that you can get involved this week. Okay. Is it a completed 5 wave on Aussie Canadian? I wouldn't label this a 5 wave. Okay, the reason is because if I'm gonna put it as a 5 wave, right? Okay, if I'm gonna label this as a 5 wave, technically it's not a very valid label. The reason is because you can see here wave 4 actually come into the territory of wave 1, right? So from a labeling rule, unless this is a diagonal structure, we wouldn't want wave 4 to come into wave 1 territory. Okay, so in this case here, I wouldn't label this as a 5 wave structure. Okay, what would be the closest way to label this? You'll be putting this as potentially a 3 wave move, and of course we have this extension, so it opens up the possibility of a double zigzag. Okay, so something like a WXYXZ, that's one possible scenario, right? Which completes this entire structure for our upside. The alternative way of looking at it from another perspective is this is a 3 wave move, and we may be developing another 3 wave move, right? So again, the clue is how the market is going to play out here, right? If this is going to be a corrective setup, then of course we'll be sticking to this, right? So WXY, WXY, okay. Now if the market actually decides to bounce up here strongly, then we'll be taking this as a WXYXZ, and then we're looking for, you know, the move to the upside. Yeah, so naturally I wouldn't put in a 5 wave because of this part here, right? Wave, if you're going to put 5 wave, then this wave 4 has eaten into the territory of wave 1, and according to the rules, it's not something valid. Okay, unless it's a diagonal, which I don't see this as a diagonal, right? It's not looking like a diagonal. Okay. Euro New Zealand on a H1. Looking at a buy. H1, right? Okay, to be honest, I'm not too keen in buying into something like that, right? This is very corrective to me. Okay, so what contribute to it being corrective is, you can see, right, we have a strong push up, but the pullback is very deep. Okay, it almost come back to where it started. It pushed up again, didn't really break a lot, came back fairly deep, right? And then it pushed up again, and then right now it's pulling back. It didn't break a lot, right? So overall, this can make the whole structure corrective in nature, right? What is impulsive? You can see this is impulsive, right? I mean, from this high to this low, it came down fast, and then it took so long, and it still haven't come back to that high, right? So this entire piece is corrective to me. So from that perspective, I wouldn't be buying. Instead, I'll be more interested, you know, to see this potentially maybe come back down and retest the bottom first. Okay, so on the higher time frame, what this can play out, you can see this one here, as we mentioned, looks corrective. It may be just correcting this move. Okay, and oftentimes the correction would complete somewhere around the 15618, which in this case kind of did that. So there's a good possibility this will actually come back down a little bit more, right? Okay, so the simplest way that I always do a projection is just do an equal leg, right? And that will open up to this area here as well, right? So I'm actually not too keen in buying, right? So that's my personal take. Okay, if you look at Euro New Zealand, I would say you probably would have a little bit of a higher chance if you are focusing on the sell side instead of the buy side of things. Okay, yeah, so that's the aspect of things. Okay, good. So I hope I give you some ideas for the week. Kind of answer a bit of questions here as well for you guys. So very quickly, before we kind of conclude the session over here, let me share with you some of the resources that you can actually make use of, right? You can actually leverage on to help you in your trading as well. So for those of you who are still not aware or very new to this, you can actually head over to this website called everythingtrading.com. Okay, right now it's free, right? So if you don't have an account, you just click on sign up, fill in with your email, okay, follow through the process to just sign up for your free account. Once you sign up for your free account, you can then log in. Okay, and once you are logged in, let me just show you what's inside. Okay, there are a couple of free resources available inside, right? So once you log in, this is your dashboard, right? So the first thing you would see obviously is there are a couple of different live sessions that is conducted by various traders, right? So it includes New York session in English, right? So this is by Daniel every Tuesday and Wednesday. We have UK session as well by Anil, okay, every Tuesday. And then for me, basically I run it in Chinese as well as English, right? So there's an alternate, one day in English, one day in Chinese. You can actually join, of course you can register, and then when the time is up, you can just click on the channel here and then you can join in. Okay, on the left you can see, right? And then of course for those of you who are very new, you can actually look at some of the beginners lessons available inside. Okay, and of course you can also explore the tools. Okay, just minimize this a little bit. Okay, so under the advanced tools you can see Signal Central, etc, etc. Of course I'm not going to go into the details of it right now, but feel free to go and explore because it's free anyway, right? You just need to go and create your new account. If you already have an account, just log in, you'll be able to explore all this for free. Okay, so this also gives you some kind of idea, right? Like this is more towards the crypto side of things. At the top you can see, right? And then over here you can see like euro, yen and things. Don't take this as a direct signal, but of course take this as more of a idea, right? So the kind of like algorithm behind Signal Central will run by an algorithm, and then based on the algorithm they will put out some ideas over here, okay, to help you as a trader to quickly identify, all right, so euro yen has something. If you go and look into it, if you can't align with the strategy, then of course that would be great, right? But if it doesn't align with the strategy, then of course you don't want to just blindly take what the Signal Central actually provide over here. Okay, yeah, so of course there are some other things here as well, like AI news sentiment indicator and things like that. Just feel free to go and explore, right? So again, the website is everythingtrading.com. The sign up for your account is free. You don't need to even put in any kind of credit card and things like that. You just basically need an email, follow that process, verify your email, and then you'll be able to log in and access all this information at the moment. All right. Cool. So that's basically for me for today's session over here. Hopefully kind of give you some ideas in terms of like what are the opportunities in the market to work on. Okay, and hopefully also by covering some of the questions that you guys have, would assist you in your trading for the week too. Okay, so all the best for the week, and we're gonna end off today's live stream over here. Okay, so see you guys. Bye bye.